The sun dipped lower behind the rugged Arizona mountains, casting streaks of orange and deep purple across the sky. Jack Reynolds, a 37-year-old veteran, walked slowly toward the town's small animal shelter. Every step echoed against the pavement, each one a reminder of the weight he had carried since leaving the army 2 years ago. No job, no therapy, no distraction had been able to fill the void inside him. Rex had been his shadow, his loyal German shepherd, a war dog who had stood by his side through countless dangers. But after an injury forced the brave dog into retirement, they had been separated. Now Jack was here at the urging of his sister, Emily, who believed a new companion might help him find peace. He wasn't convinced, but something deep inside told him he needed to take this step. The shelter was modest, its rusty fences and makeshift doghouses standing as silent witnesses to countless untold stories. The sharp scent of disinfectant clung to the air, mingling with the distant sounds of barking. As Jack walked between the cages, he scanned each dog with a searching gaze. Some wagged their tails eagerly, others simply watched him with weary, knowing eyes. Yet none of them had that unmistakable spark, the one that reminded him of Rex. Just as he was about to turn away, a shelter worker approached. "Mr. Reynolds," she said hesitantly, "we have a German shepherd in the back, but he's a little different." Jack's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he followed her to a quieter section of the shelter. In the dimly lit corner of a cage, a large German shepherd lay still, his black and tan fur barely moving with each breath. His body was tense, his eyes dull and distant, filled with something Jack couldn't quite place. But the moment he saw him, a shock of recognition hit him like a lightning bolt. Jack's breath caught in his throat. His voice was barely a whisper. "Rex!" The dog lifted his head slowly, his tired eyes meeting Jack's. But there was no recognition, no wagging tail, no spark of familiarity. Jack felt his chest tighten. He had imagined this moment so many times, the joy, the reunion, the unbreakable bond reigniting in an instant. But all he got was an empty stare. He doesn't recognize me," Jack murmured, stepping back. A painful knot formed in his stomach. Was this really Rex? Had time stolen the bond they once had? But as he stood there, staring into those tired eyes, one thing became clear. He wasn't walking away. Not this time. The drive home was quiet, almost unsettling. Rex lay in the back of the truck, resting on a blanket Jack had brought for him. He didn't look at Jack. Instead, his eyes stayed fixed on the window, watching the passing world but refusing to engage with the man who once meant everything to him. Jack stole glances in the rearview mirror, trying to understand what was going on in the dog's mind. Was he scared? Confused? Or had he truly forgotten everything? The thought sent a sharp ache through Jack's chest, but he pushed it down. This wasn't about what had been lost. It was about what could still be rebuilt. When they arrived, Jack pulled up to his small, quiet property on the outskirts of town. The house was simple, with a wide yard and a few trees swaying in the evening breeze. He stepped out and opened the truck door. "Come on, boy," he said, trying to sound upbeat. Rex hesitated. For a long moment he didn't move. Then, cautiously, he stepped down, his every movement careful, his body tense, like a soldier walking into unknown territory. Jack led him to the front door and held it open. "Welcome home." Rex stepped inside but stopped in the entryway, sniffing the air cautiously. He didn't relax, he didn't wag his tail. Instead, he stood there as if waiting for something bad to happen. Jack had prepared everything. In the corner of the living room, he had set up a cozy spot with a new dog bed, food and water bowls, and even a few toys he had picked up on the way home. "This is your spot, Rex," Jack said, pointing to the area. But Rex didn't move. He stayed rooted where he was, ignoring the gesture completely. Jack let out a slow breath. He knew this would take time. He had faced impossible battles before. But this might be the hardest fight yet. Because this time, it wasn't about survival. It was about trust. And Jack was willing to do whatever it took to earn it back. If you're just as invested in this journey as we are, leave a like to show your support, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next in this powerful story of loyalty, healing, and second chances. Because sometimes, the hardest battles are fought after the war is over. Loyalty, that bond never fades, even when memories do. Jack looked at Rex, the same dog who had once stood by his side through the worst of times. But now, he was different. Wounded, not just physically, but in a way Jack understood all too well. "I know how you feel, buddy," Jack murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. Lost. That night, he left his bedroom door open, hoping, just hoping, that Rex would feel safe enough to come closer. As Jack lay in bed, staring into the darkness, he heard it, the soft sound of paws against the floor. He held his breath, waiting. Rex didn't come to him, but he did lie down near the bedroom door, keeping a cautious distance. Jack smiled to himself. It was small, but it was something. The next morning, Jack stirred awake to a quiet presence near the door. He blinked, adjusting to the dim light, and saw Rex sitting there, ears perked, eyes locked onto him. For the first time since their reunion, Jack felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, something familiar was returning to Rex's mind. "Good morning, buddy," Jack said, stretching. He forced a smile, hoping for any sign of recognition, but Rex simply looked away and padded silently back to the corner of the room. Jack exhaled slowly. This was going to take time. Determined to rebuild their connection, Jack spent the day trying different ways to engage with him. He picked up a tennis ball and gently tossed it. Rex didn't react. He set a fresh bowl of food beside him, but Rex only approached it after Jack left the room. Every attempt at closeness was met with cold silence. But Jack understood. This wasn't rejection. It was fear. It was pain. That afternoon, Jack decided to try something different. Digging through an old box in his closet, he pulled out a worn military vest, the same one he had worn on missions with Rex. As he held it in his hands, the familiar scent of sand, sweat, and battlefield dust filled the air. "Let's see if you remember this," he said, taking it to the backyard where Rex sat, watching the world in silence. Jack laid the vest on the ground and stepped back, giving Rex space. The German shepherd sniffed the fabric, his nostrils flaring as he took in the familiar scent. For a moment, just a brief moment, his eyes softened. Then, just as quickly, the light faded. Rex took a step back, his tail lowering as he retreated once again. Jack felt the hope slip through his fingers. That night, as the cold air settled in, Jack sat on the porch, watching Rex lie beneath the stars. "I'm not giving up on you," Jack said, his voice firm yet gentle. "You never gave up on me when I needed you the most. And I won't give up now." He knew he was asking for something difficult, but he also knew their bond wasn't gone. It was just buried, beneath layers of trauma, fear, and time. Jack stood, stretched, and walked inside, leaving the back door open. He wasn't going to force anything. Rex needed space. Hours later, just as Jack was drifting into sleep, a soft sound pulled him back to consciousness. The quiet scratch of paws against the floor. He opened his eyes. There, at the foot of his bed, lay Rex. His eyes were half closed, his body curled up, not beside Jack, but not far away either. Jack didn't say anything. He didn't want to break the moment. He just smiled in the dark. The distance between them was shrinking. It was still small, but it was enough, and that was all Jack needed to keep going. The journey isn't over yet. Every day, small moments began to chip away at the wall between them. Monday morning, as Jack chopped wood in the yard, He noticed Rex watching him from a distance. His head tilted slightly, eyes filled with quiet curiosity. Jack wiped his forehead and reached out his hand. "Want to help, boy?" he asked, a playful tone in his voice. Rex didn't move closer, but this time, he didn't look away either. Later that day, Jack picked up a stick and gently tossed it forward, not expecting much. To his surprise, Rex took a few hesitant steps toward it. He stopped, considered, then turned back without picking it up. Jack chuckled. "Oh, I see how it is," he teased. "You remember how to play. You're just pretending you don't." It wasn't much, but to Jack, it was everything. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, it felt possible. Trust isn't rebuilt in a day, but sometimes, all it takes is one small step forward. Jack fastened Rex's old ID tag to the new collar, his fingers brushing over the engraved letters. The name was worn, but the meaning behind it hadn't faded. "Let's go for a walk, boy," Jack said, adjusting the leash. Rex hesitated when Jack opened the gate, standing still, ears twitching as he scanned the world beyond the fence. The open space, the unfamiliar sounds, everything felt uncertain. Jack could see it in the way Rex's body stiffened, his eyes flickering with unease. With a gentle tug, Jack encouraged him forward. During the walk, Rex remained tense, his movements cautious and his ears alert to every noise. He sniffed the air constantly, muscles coiled as if ready for something to go wrong. Jack noticed and spoke softly, his voice steady. "You don't have to be like that anymore, buddy. We're safe here." He knew the words meant little right now, but maybe if Rex heard them enough, one day he might believe them. As they returned home, something unexpected happened. Jack knelt to unclip the leash when Rex hesitated, then took a step closer. Jack froze. Rex lowered his nose, cautiously sniffing Jack's hand. Jack held his breath, afraid to move, afraid to break whatever fragile moment was unfolding between them. "That's it, Rex," he murmured, barely above a whisper. For a few seconds, Rex stayed there, lingering in Jack's scent, something once familiar, now distant, yet strangely comforting. Then, just as quickly, he stepped away. Jack let out a slow exhale. It was small, barely a fraction of what they used to have, but to him, it meant everything. That evening, as Jack prepared dinner, he noticed Rex lying on the rug near the kitchen. Not beside him, not seeking affection, but close enough that Jack could feel the weight of his presence. He glanced at the German shepherd and smiled. "I think we're becoming friends again, huh?" Rex didn't respond, but his eyes weren't as distant. There was something there, something that hadn't been there before. Have you ever shared a bond with an animal that time or hardship tried to break? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear it. The next morning, mist curled around the yard, painting everything in shades of gray. Jack woke early, as he always did, but found Rex already awake, sitting by the living room window, staring out into the fog. Jack approached slowly, careful not to startle him. "Remembering something, boy?" he asked gently, though he knew no answer would come. After breakfast, Jack rummaged through the back of his closet, pulling out an old wooden box. Inside were pieces of his past, medals, photos, letters, and a worn-out rubber ball. He held it in his hands for a long moment, the weight of old memories pressing against his chest. This had been Rex's favorite toy, something that had once brought him joy, even in the darkest moments. Jack stepped outside. Rex was lying in the yard, lost in thought. Jack set the ball down near him. Rex lifted his head, ears twitching as he sniffed the air. He hesitated. For a moment, it seemed like he was going to ignore it entirely, but then, a step forward, a hesitant sniff. Jack watched, holding his breath, as Rex lingered over the ball, muscles tight with an internal struggle. "You remember this, don't you?" Jack murmured, almost pleading. That day, something felt different. During lunch, Rex stayed close, following Jack's every movement with quiet curiosity. Then, something Jack never expected. For the first time since he'd brought Rex home, the dog accepted food directly from his hand. Jack barely breathed, keeping his movements slow and steady. He didn't want to scare him away. Rex chewed carefully, his eyes never leaving Jack's. For the first time in a long time, Jack felt the weight of the past loosening its grip. Later, he sat on the porch, rolling the rubber ball between his fingers. "Remember when you brought me this thing in the middle of the night because you couldn't sleep?" Jack chuckled, shaking his head. "You were so stubborn. Still are, I guess." He tossed the ball gently across the yard. He didn't expect Rex to react. But then, Rex's ears perked up. Something flickered in his eyes, and for the first time in forever, he took a step forward, grabbed a second coffee mug, filling it with warm broth. He walked back to the porch and sat down on the steps, setting the mug beside him. "You used to drink from my cup when we were out there," Jack said with a small smile. "Guess old habits take time to come back, huh?" Rex hesitated, but took a few slow steps forward, his nose twitching at the familiar scent of the broth. The rain continued to fall, drumming against the roof, the wind carrying the scent of wet earth. Jack didn't move, didn't pressure him. And then, for the first time since bringing him home, Rex closed the distance on his own. He stopped beside Jack, his body tense but present. Slowly, cautiously, he lowered his head and lapped at the broth. Jack swallowed the lump in his throat, staring ahead into the storm. It wasn't about the drink. It wasn't even about the moment. It was about trust. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Jack knew they were on their way to finding it again. Grabbed it between his teeth. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he watched, hardly believing what he was seeing. Rex stood there for a moment, gripping the ball, his body still tense as if unsure of what to do next. Then, slowly, he turned back toward Jack. And this time, instead of dropping the ball and retreating, he trotted forward and placed it at Jack's feet. Jack swallowed hard, fighting the sting of emotion in his eyes. He knelt down, reaching out, but stopping just short of touching Rex. "Good boy," he whispered. "You remember, don't you?" Rex didn't flinch. He didn't pull away. Instead, for the first time since coming home, he looked straight into Jack's eyes, not with fear, but with recognition. Jack let out a slow, shaky breath. The road ahead was still long. There would still be bad days, setbacks, moments of doubt. But right here, in this moment, he knew one thing for certain. They weren't just healing. They were finding their way back to each other. Rex trotted back, carefully placing the ball at Jack's feet. The veteran stood frozen, his breath hitching as his eyes welled with tears. Such a small action, yet it meant everything. It was proof that Rex was starting to break free from the chains of his past. Jack swallowed hard, his voice thick with emotion. "That's it, partner. I knew you were still in there." He picked up the ball again, his hands shaking slightly, and tossed it once more. This time, Rex ran faster, his tail wagging, even if only slightly. The sight made Jack's heart swell. After weeks of patience, of hoping, of never giving up, he was finally seeing progress. It felt like a miracle, like a breakthrough they had both fought for. That night, for the first time since Rex had arrived, he curled up beside Jack on the couch. He rested his head near Jack's leg, his warm breath steady and calm. Jack didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply stayed still, letting the silence wrap around them like an unspoken promise. Trust, fragile but growing, was being rebuilt. And Jack knew, no matter how long it took, he would never give up on the friend who had once saved his life. Morning came with the soft chirping of birds outside, but inside, something far more profound was unfolding. Rex stood in the center of the room, his eyes locked onto Jack, who held a leash in one hand and a military vest in the other. "Today's the big day, buddy," Jack said, a hopeful smile on his face. He had decided to take Rex to a place that once meant the world to them, a park where they had spent their best days together before everything changed. It was a test, a chance to see just how far they had come. As they drove, Rex sat in the back seat, his head slightly out the window, the wind ruffling his fur. Jack watched him through the rearview mirror, his chest tightening with a mixture of pride and relief. He had fought for this, for Rex, for their bond, for the chance to heal. And now, this moment felt like a victory in itself. "Just like the old times, huh?" Jack murmured, even though he didn't expect an answer. When they arrived, Jack hesitated for a second before unclipping Rex's leash. He picked up the rubber ball and threw it. Rex stood still, his eyes scanning the familiar surroundings. Then, he ran. No hesitation. No fear. He chased the ball, his movements confident, free. Jack's breath caught in his throat. It was happening. For hours they played as if time had rewound, as if the weight of their past no longer held them down. Jack could see it. Rex was still the dog he had once known, but he was also someone new. And Jack realized they both were. The past had shaped them, but it didn't define them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack sat on a bench, exhaustion mingling with overwhelming peace. Rex lay beside him, resting his head on Jack's leg, just as he used to. Jack exhaled, a small, content smile forming. He ran his fingers gently through Rex's fur. "I told you I wouldn't give up on you," he whispered. For the first time in years, something inside him felt whole again. Rex wasn't just a dog. He was proof that love, patience, and unwavering determination could heal even the deepest wounds. As they headed home, Jack knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. Because some bonds are unbreakable. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like to support, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this. Your presence here truly makes a difference.